I spend my life researching and teaching people how to live a powerful life. I am a believer. I stand for the transformation of humanity. I have found my purpose. My name is Gabrielle McGee, and I am the rebellious therapist. So welcome to my series 2 of the Rebellious Therapist. And we're going to continue this, the how-to series, because we've had a lot of people, we had great feedback. People had a lot of value from it. So we're going to, what I want to say is Ciara is with me today again from New York. And what the subject that we've been really requested mostly in the last few weeks and months is all about narcissistic traits or narcissistic personalities. So there's a great sort of confusement and not clear what's what and how to define it. It's sort of, people have just sort of got it as it's nearly like a bad word at the minute and a negative sort of space to be talked about. People sort of punishing people in a way that they want to make them wrong or they want to discredit them, and they use that word. But I think it would be really useful to define what it really is, so people can maybe get sort of more clarity on what it looks like and how to define it more for themselves, define actually their process in it as well. If you've ever been in a relationship with someone like this, or if you are in a relationship with someone like this, what can you do? So welcome, Ciara.
Hello, how are you?
How are you, my love? And so, look, I think this is something me and you, we talk about a lot that we wanted to do going forward with our podcast. And yeah, so I think we want to say just a big Happy New Year to everyone. And 2023 is, going well for you, and you're planning a lot of great things this year. And me and Ciara, we got loads of plans going forward and how we want this year to look. And yeah, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to say a few things, Ciara.
Hello, and thanks for having me back for season 2.
Oh my God,
I love
I'm delighted.
it. I was researching last night and I was like, this is where my flow is. And you talk about being in the flow.
Yeah.
So yeah, today's topic is a big one, I think. Narcissism. You see a lot of it online. I've had one encounter in my life with a narcissist, and it completely took me completely out, but we'll get to that anyways in the end.
Sure.
Hence why I feel comfortable talking about it, because I was able to, like you said, define it and give it if anything, knowledge is power, knowledge is understanding. And that's really what this podcast is about, is to get to the root of what this is, because I think the social media and society can take things and run with them and reframe it in a way that maybe is confusing and, like you said, it has a negative connotation when really it's a deep-rooted core issue. So yeah, I think we'll just start there really, Gabrielle. What is narcissism and what's the difference between narcissistic traits and narcissistic personality disorder? Yeah. And we'll start with everybody has, there's a narcissistic spectrum. And we all have some narcissistic tendencies. So let's just start with that. But there's an extreme, and then there's the kind of other end where most of us reside. And then you'll know more. You can speak more to that.
Yeah. There is a school of thought we all do have it, right? I'm not sure if I'd work from there very much, Ciara.
Yeah.
Because when you define it, it's very, it's very clear when you define the actual traits. And it's not that we don't have stuff negative, but when we get to define this today, you'll see there is a difference between, and the school of thought is out there, and it's it all depends on what your belief system is. But when I work as a therapist, I can see the strength of the narcissistic traits and the personality disorder. There's a huge gap between, say, like me or you, some of the negative or the dark side or whatever, some of the stuff that we've actually act out of, which I would define it slightly different to what some of those people are saying that as a narcissistic behavior.
Yeah.
And it's not to say we don't have that stuff going on, but, I just think that it's really good to have the whole thing really defined. So let's start off with NPD, right? NPD is probably as a narcissistic personality disorder. So that means, I think I don't know, the research is saying it's like 5% of the population have this, right? And it is something that you get diagnosed with, and it's a more clinical space, it's something that you suffer from for sure, right? And it's like, being in any sort of mental health sort of zone, because I it's a clinical process that's going on, and a distortion, right? So the distortion is very much probably part of how the brain's functioning as well as anything else. It can be genetic as well. Okay. So that's very different. That's just, I'm going to say a little bit about that because that's quite complex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite obvious when you meet that 5% and, how this sort of, how they're not able to, interact properly, or they're very isolated and very, they're not very good social occasions or, environments like that. It is very obvious. But as I said, it's 5%.
So
but
what about the 95%?
The way we're talking about narcissism at the minute, everybody's got it.
Yeah.
The whole world's got it. I'm even checking myself out in the mirror. Oh my God. And actually, when I get into an argument with my partner, I think, oh my God, am I gaslighting him on my narcissistic personality?
Yeah.
So that's why we want to clear it up, right? So basic narcissistic traits, right? So usually that type of personality, right? That type of, and I say that type of personality, right? It usually is developed between not and 3. And what I mean by that, it means that a lot of their informative years, and those years where where the parents, even just one parent, that hasn't created that security or connection or given them their needs met. If that is not happening, or if that's something the child has suffered and hasn't got developed strongly enough, then what to do is start compensating.
Yeah.
And how they compensate is they start to, develop a sense of self, overdevelop a sense of self. But it's all inside of survival. And what they're surviving is, if you don't have that needs early stage needs met, right? Then the level of insecurity, and they don't have, that early stage of developing your personality, is distorted. So here we are, right?
So from my research, and I discussed with you before here, the type of parent is, the behavior is either abandonment or enmeshment. So abandonment is they have no way in to connect or to meet the needs of their child. So the child feels isolated. And then the enmeshment is they overextend it.
Yeah, where the child doesn't get to develop.
Yeah, they develop their sense of self through the child. So the child then cannot even have any space to create its own sense of self.
Correct.
So those are the two kind of extremes for narcissism to be developed in early stages.
Yeah. And it's
is that right?
Yeah, but what people don't understand is the personality type. So, like, some people are very, extrovert, introvert, narcissistic, got narcissistic sort of type of personality. And I think what I want to do today is take the madness and the make wrong of it out of the actual, and explain to people, look, you know what? There isn't a lot of make wrong of it, or there's it's spoken about as if it's as a monster they talk about, but actually this person, and I'm not saying, making excuses for it, but it is a personality type. It's as simple as that, right? Now, one of the things that you can see, some people have different some people have it, like 100%. Some people have traits of it. So it's quite complex at that level. There's moments where, you'll see people, okay, what's going on over there? And maybe other times it's fine. Where people have, other people might be driven by it completely. Their whole life's driven by it. And one thing else I want to point out is women have it differently to men. Not all the time, but there is a difference between the two sexes.
Yeah. So let's give an example of a real life personality now that's kind of like on the extreme spectrum, and one that's coming to me, and not to get into politics, but is like Donald Trump and Putin. Would you agree that they're extreme narcissists? Definitely Donald Trump.
Look, I don't know Donald Trump, right? And I always have a difficulty with how the media portrays people, but it looks like he does, right?
He looks like he does.
And it looks quite extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, actually, if you want to see the case of an extreme narcissist, there's a series on Apple TV called Bad Sisters. And that is like a very, very serious case of narcissism.
Is that like a drama? Is it?
It's a drama, yeah. It's not real, but it is real. It can be real for some people, actually.
Yeah, well, people can probably relate to it.
Yes, yeah.
So talk to me about that, because I don't know that program, Ciara.
So, if I'm applying my research to this series, the main character, John Paul, actually, that's his name. Oh God, John Paul is a narcissistic leader. So he's a deep narcissist. He's on the extreme spectrum. And this is all my research from The Laws of Human Nature, Robert Greene's book. So he lies there.
Do you just want to say that again, that book you read is?
The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene.
Yeah.
So he lies on that very extreme where his sense of self-worth and how he validates himself is through other people. So he sees people as an extension of him.
Himself.
The person closest to him, his wife, is the one he tortures and abuses and gaslights the most. But it also filters into all her sisters and his daughter. So he holds this space where and then applying my research to that is, really, John Paul is like an 8-year-old acting out in an adult's body that he never got the love, the care, his needs met. So he has brought all of this with him, and he's now controlling and manipulating the people around him to fulfill his sense of worth.
Sense of self.
And it's so detrimental to the victims. But really, when you look at it, if like you said, we take the monster and the kind of negative out of it, it's a deeply, deeply insecure, wounded person who's in survival and found a way of coping due to his parents. And you actually see in the series the way his parents treated him.
Yeah.
And then it gives kind of an understanding, not an okaying or not a like, okay, it's okay, but an understanding as to why it's acted out that way.
And that's why I'm saying it's not rocket science. You know, if you really know where to look and how to look, it's actually very, really, really obvious why that person turned out the way they did. Right? But I want to ask you something, right? What role do you think the sisters have in it? What's that role they've taken? Because one of the issues I have with the whole conversation is, he's locked into, getting an extension of his identity, and he has to run like that to keep that sort of, like, that's compromising for what he didn't get. And I would say, maybe not an 8-year-old, I would say between like a 2 or 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Because it is a primal caretaking years, which is not till 3. So if that's distorted, then they have no chance. If that distortion, then they've gone into survival. Even though it's a human nature, we know we need to connect. We know all that, right? That's like what I call non-conscious, not a subconscious, but a non-conscious process. So we know what we need as in the human sort of process of being here. We need connection. We need that security, and we need to have that as a child given to us, so we can experience that, and we can, live from there and have that experience and know how to operate from there. And if that's not there, then we've got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it'll come from parents who's either, could be coming through, if it's a male, it could come through grandfather, father. So you've inherited something here where they don't know how to connect in that way. Or it could be mom. As you say, can be the over sort of parenting. Where the child...
Helicopter parenting.
Yeah. Yeah. And where the child hasn't got no identity either, hasn't got no sense of self. So that's where it's quite complicated.
Yeah.
And the fact that if two people, with twins, believe it or not, one twin could be like that and the other twin can be the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's not a given. It's not that, it's not like that straightforward. And also depends on the actual sensitivity or the personality type of children or the people. That can be formed, but it's also part of nature as well.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really into the complexity of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the early years of it.
Yeah.
And kind of the understanding behind it. People just don't wake up one day and become a narcissist. It's a process. And like you said,
people talk about it, they make it such something that's so weird, like the monster stuff. And I'm like, but that then you have no power around that. It's like, that means you completely...
For the victim, there's no power if it is a monster.
The victim's got a role here.
Yeah. So let's bring it to up to today. So let's imagine me and you are in a narcissistic relationship. What trait? I'm the narcissist. You're the... I don't want to say victim. You're the...
Well,
what would
I'm the partner of that, right?
You're the partner.
Yeah.
What kind of traits would you see in me, and how do you feel then?
For a start, I won't see any traits because I'm already locked into the process.
Okay.
I'm already part of it. Okay. So I'm going to be completely unconscious of what it looks like. And that will come from it being so familiar. So that can be you've had a parent who's a narcissistic parent, or, one of the things that locks the partner in is they actually suffer from toxic empaths. So usually you'll have a toxic empath on the other end of this narcissistic partner.
And what is a toxic empath?
Exactly. Very good question. So that means that you feel overextended responsibility for someone, and you see that as a problem. Trying to help them, and you feel sorry for them all the time. And it actually costs you so much of, you don't really take care of yourself. You have no sense of self either.
Mm-hmm.
But you're dealing with it in a different, it's really, actually, if you really go back to the root of it all, you have also no sense of self. And how you get sense of self is you overextend onto the other person and try and control and take care and be part, it's that extended identification with the person in front of you. So if you have taken care of him, feeling sorry for I hear in my clinic, I hear people saying, this is a situation, I've got this guy, he does this, but I feel sorry for him. He's cheated on me, but I feel sorry for him. he's been really rude or he's treated me badly, but I feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
You'll hear actually women do that a lot. You hear men doing it as well, but it's a lot of conversation that women have. So it's that extended wanting to help, wanting to rescue, wanting to, change him or her life and all of that, which is toxic empathy. Now, empathy, I was actually going to write in the early days, I was going to write a paper on actually empathy. And this is going to sound crazy to some people, but empathy is a curse. And for some people, it is. For the people who doesn't have it, need some of it. And the people who overextending themselves into that empathy, it actually does more damage than good.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to grasp for sure.
Yeah.
Because the line is so fine between it being healthy and then toxic.
Absolutely.
And you really have to have, again, a strong, reliable, resilient sense of self in order to be able to show up as an empathetic human being. And it's tough. It's constant work.
Well, I don't think anyone can actually be there without doing the therapy. Without doing the work. Because none of the parenting that goes on actually in those days, it's very changed now. They didn't have the education.
Yeah.
So they're parenting from their own issues and their own, inherited parenting style. And also as a society, we haven't got it right.
Yeah.
So we, at least, the younger, at least the parents have somewhere to go now to find out the information, to do it, differently, which is really wonderful. And that's why I love all of the social media and YouTubes and all the educational stuff that's out there. It's just, to me, it's a miracle comparison to what I used to see whenever I was early days working as a therapist. People didn't have anywhere to go to collect information unless they went to a therapist.
Yeah.
Figure stuff out.
There's a lot you can start with.
So much you can do now, Okay,
let's go back to narcissism.
Yes, let's do it.
There's so many little segues you can take because it's such a broad topic and you need all of those to kind of really understand. But let's get down to the traits. So for people who are wondering if they're in a narcissistic, people are wondering if they're a narcissist and people who are wondering if they're in a narcissistic relationship, what are the warning signs? Like from some of the stuff that I've looked up, like some of my research, a narcissist will be critical and harsh within the home. And then outside the home, they'll be warm, loving, and kind. And then that kind of imbalance leads to a lot of confusion on the victim's part. And then they'll never know how to or why somebody treats them that way. Or what else? They'll deny your reality. So the victim will say, where was that? Like, this is a very minor example just for, where was that milk I left in the fridge? You never left milk in the fridge. And the narcissist say, you never left milk in the fridge. And maybe the narcissist poured the milk out and threw it away just to kind of manipulate and deny them.
Yeah.
And then that person will go away, start to feel quote unquote crazy. And then over a long period of time and more of that behavior, your spirit will start to, your spirit will start to be killed off. Your soul will start to be killed off.
No.
To the point that...
Can I come in here just quickly?
Yeah.
Actually, you said a word there, Ciara, which is really important. So I'll let you, I'm going to jump in, I don't want that to go anywhere, is manipulate. It's intentional.
Manipulate, yeah.
That's what it really looks like. That's where the narcissist really goes to town. It's very driven and planned. As you say, he goes, you go to the, this is a very sort of simplifying the example, going to the fridge, he's poured the milk out deliberately and then denies your reality in there. Okay, so please carry on. I just wanted to just make sure there was such a great point you were making there on the, manipulating deliberately. It's a deliberate act within the narcissistic personality. And they know they're doing it a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of it they do know.
Yeah, so I guess now I'll just with that example, maybe I'll bring my real life into it. And I was involved. I wouldn't say that I was dating or anything because it was not any of that. It was more like a game is what it looks like now. But at the point,
do they call it situationship?
I don't even I'm even getting anxiety in my chest, even going back to this place now, because it's I cannot believe that I was involved in that. But it was not that long ago either. It was only 4 years ago, and I had started therapy. So you're never kind of out of the woods.
No.
Not until you understand or maybe come into contact. So I started therapy, but again, I was getting over my heartbreak, very vulnerable. The only way I could describe myself was like a deer in headlights, just looking for this kind of, and here's a word you're going to like, grandiose personality. And that's exactly what it was. This person I would interact with, and they would be so confident, so nonchalant, so always have a lot to say, would work the room, and I just fell for the picture, I guess. Yeah. So we got involved, and next thing I was starting to feel this sense of craziness in myself, because this person would say or do things and they would not follow through, or ring me and say, I didn't say that, even though you said that. It was just bizarre, the stuff that they did. They would show up outside, show up in my neighborhood. They would just find any way to I don't even know how to explain it, to be there, to suck that, whatever. Because I was there. I was open. I was ready. I was given it, to the point that I actually had to quit my job.
Wow.
So the very last straw was me walking in to this place, seeing that person, breaking down crying. And this was over a 6-month period.
Wow.
Going upstairs, having a panic attack, calling my therapist at the time. And then I actually had to go and do the shift in the end. And they, that person was there. And then I just quit, and that was it. And I had no support, because here's the thing. This person knew a lot of people, and a lot of people that I knew. But what I was feeling and seeing, nobody else could feel and see.
That's very common.
And there was no support, is what I was I was screaming, trying, telling people, is what it felt like. This is crazy. This is what he does. This is this, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I don't see that.
Yes, very, very common. This is a big part of what I hear day in and day out. That people can't see what I see or I experience. And the children is one. Children will say that. When they've grown up and through the years of being with that type of parent, that when they go outside, it looks really amazing. But inside it was completely different reality.
Yeah. So just that's what it looked like towards the end. And I read a good thing last night, and obviously this person, was on the scale of never being able to have connection or have a relationship or anything like that. And it says, the only way to deal with something like that is to get out of their way. And that's actually what I had to do. Quit my job and just completely get out of the way. New York's big enough. Never had to run into them since, unless they were coming looking or coming for some other whatever. But what it felt like to me was I was absolutely broken, and I didn't know who I was. Why would I fall for somebody like that? Is there something wrong with me? I'm in therapy. I'm still blah, blah, blah. So I just want to we're not safe, really. We just have to be so aware and have our own, like, I guess I was only developing my sense of self then. So I was looking outside of myself. So yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if it happened today, you'd have a very different approach, right? And that's what I want to say to you. Look, I think, do you think that showed up because how vulnerable you were at the time? And you can see why, why the whole, the narcissistic personality will see that a mile away.
Yeah.
They'll recognize that a mile away. They're looking for it. They know exactly what game they want to play. And what do you think was happening to him that he was started to get obsessive? I want to explain to you what's happening with him at that point, right? Because what's happening is he feels out of control. So whatever he felt in them early days, he wanted more of, because he started to feel himself empowered by that. And you were giving him, because you were really vulnerable, you were actually giving him a lot of that power as well. Without knowing, without understanding what actually was happening. Then when you sort of started pulling away, he had to really start trying to find it, trying to, bring it back, bring back control and get that, because what you've done, you've triggered his child trauma. So then you can see to what extent that will actually trigger off and actually head into the real psychosis.
Yeah. Yeah, like we were doing a dance kind of thing because I knew there was something not right, but I wasn't strong enough to walk away.
Out, yeah.
So I would go in and then I'd pull back and then he'd come in and then, it was this like push-pull thing because there was like something in me that knew this wasn't right, but also my obviously conditioning program and familiarity wanted to stay or think I could change him.
But you are an empath, right?
Yeah.
So it's it is the perfect scenario to act out.
Perfect.
You know what I mean? It's not
that. Yeah.
It's not what you want, but actually those two, that's what I'm saying. You have to, the partner has to be in a certain space for that stuff to be able to, run the way it does. Because both people are buying into something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of times that's the male.
Yeah. Sort
of personality type on how it looks, right? So the man goes into for the power, the leadership. You'll see them all, and they talk about this a lot in companies and businesses, and and a lot of men could be like that at work and go home and not like that, and it all depends where they want the power from. Now we've got the woman. That's another type of, that's another type of way of they have their own style, right? So I just made a couple of notes here because I was thinking about, okay, so when I deal with women, what does it look like? So they got deep insecurity. They have this martyrdom, it's all that stuff, but I did this for you. It's all that acting out stuff that you can hear, sort of battered around a lot, really jealous and insecure, competitive, and have no problem causing harm to other women, gossiping, gaslighting them, making them, that person something that they're not, and really convincing everyone in their environment. And you see this all the time, Ciara. There's that like out to make the person look as bad as they can. That's also how women do narcissism. But it's not seen, we because it's such a new conversation, it's all about the men at the minute. But I just think, we need to even out and really look at right through the spectrum what it looks like,
Yeah. Yeah. So, what?
And to be honest with you, if I want to talk about having a narcissistic someone who's narcissistic, I can really pinpoint through my and a lot of people say it's men. For me, it's women.
Yeah.
I've experienced that a lot through my working years, or even at school and stuff. That stuff acts out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that part. And I was talking to you before we came on to do this podcast, that there's a couple other types where I see that grandiosis, where I'm confident, I'm amazing, I am special. I don't suffer from anything, and I'm like, got it sorted. And it's constantly not, you can't speak to them about any other subject but them. And even if you say, look, this happened to me today, they'll bring it back to themselves and how wonderful they are. So that's one sort of type of personality that's that's called the grandiosis narcissistic trait, right? But there's one I think we've got, maybe not so much these days. You know what I'm going to say, right? The spiritual narcissistic personality. And we have in Ireland, but it's right through, you can see it right through everywhere in the world, where people use religion to bamboozle all their bad behavior and disrespect, and like there's some really crazy stuff gets covered up because they use God.
So do you think people who like use religion like that, they in their earliest years, because narcissism is developed in the earliest years, their sense of self was driven through religion?
Could be.
So
it could be handed down behavior.
They picked up the Bible, or they went to mass, and whatever was told to them, right, I'm going to apply that to who I am, because I can go nowhere else. I don't know who I am. So I'm going to use that and just drive my life through that.
Yeah, and drive out the bad behavior and get away with it.
Right.
So you can see how manipulating it is. And not everyone who's got religious beliefs, obviously, and it's not just the Catholic Church, but we can talk about the Catholic Church because that's where we were brought up from.
Yeah.
And we can see through the history, and I don't want to get into too much of the politics, but the stuff that's shown up in Ireland in the last few years, it's bonkers.
Well, like what I'm thinking now is, and this is not to blame anybody, but it's just the Catholic Church and growing up is, you were bad if you didn't go to mass, and then you needed to go to confessions.
We were born bad, right? Before we got here, there's something wrong with us, right? I'm like, oh my God. And, it's all, that's another conversation we're going to have in the next podcast. It's about your inner bully and your inner critic. But we were born sinners. So we are already controlled. We're already there. We have no chance. So you can see,
That's narcissism, right?
Yeah, it's narcissism and gaslighting. So it's bizarre. We can go on forever. We could do so many podcasts on this, But I know we do have to end now, but we might come back to this at another time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add, Ciara?
What's kind of the what?
Is there anything else you want to add to this? What do you think is more? Is there anything more important? Anything that's of importance that we want to add before we end this?
I think really it's a deeply layered, deeply complex subject. But if anything, if people walk away kind of with a rooted understanding of what it actually is, and like you said, let's not demonize it, but let's relate to it.
Yeah, let's understand.
And then there's more power in that. If you are the victim or the narcissist, and understand that, you don't have to live like this. But yeah, like how would you just sum it up? Like in the like cleanest, neatest way?
Yeah.
And I know that's a really hard question, but just to like end with that, like something to leave in people's heads when they hear the word narcissism.
Yeah, so stop trying to change them. You're never going to change them, right? That's number one. Just give that up and go and get responsible in therapy. Go to therapy. That's going to be the mantra. Go to therapy, especially if you're in a situation where it's that way out there and you're locked into something. Then it's you. Start looking at you in the mirror and say, right, okay, I need to get responsible here. It's my life. I'm responsible for my own happiness. I'm responsible to get myself out of this situation. It's really not working for me and it's dysfunctional. And to give up that you're going to change anything in front of you, because it's never going to change. Now, can I just say it really quickly? When narcissistic people come to me in therapy, they can change.
Mm-hmm.
They can change through awareness and education, but you're never, the person that's in a relationship with them is never going to reach that. It has to come from the person themselves and know the more educated they become, the more they know they were, damaged or they didn't get their needs met as a child, and now they want to learn how to do that. It takes a time, but they can do that through therapy. That's the good news.
Yeah. And I think we talked a lot about, relationships, like maybe romantic, but you could have narcissistic parents, you could have narcissistic friends, you can have a narcissistic boss, you can have a narcissistic sibling. So just be aware and go educate yourself, empower yourself and step out of their way.
Should we give some tips on how to identify them?
Yes.
So one of the things you'll notice, they're very good, very charming and very charismatic at the start. Now, that's where it gets complex because not everybody that shows up like that looks like that, right? Always be very aware at the start of any new relationship or any meeting with anyone, how your experience is. So there could be love bombing you. There could be, every time you go, also when you talk, some of them will not even hear what you're saying. It'll all be about them. That's another warning sign. Number 3, I always ask people, if I was going out dating, the first thing I'd ask them about their background without them even understanding what I'm asking for. Because there's loads of clues there for you. Watch them how they are around people. Are they demanding? Are they very special and they need special attention or a special service, special, there's a given and how their attitude is towards, especially if you go outside with them, you can see you just keep watching and awareness getting really present. But also watch what you're doing. If you're losing yourself in there, or if you're, having a sense of, your energy will tell you everything. If you're not feeling it, you said at the start with this guy that you knew something's off. And it's just you didn't have the muscle strong enough to pay attention to it stronger or listen to the voice that you actually, what, there's something really off with this relationship or this guy. Where if you meet him now, you'll see it a million miles away because you got the work done.
The only way, when you're saying that, the only way I can describe it is, yes, my muscle wasn't strong enough, but I was intoxicated by the grandiose personality and the false perception that he portrayed. Yeah.
But would you see that today?
Yes.
Exactly, because you're more educated, right?
Yeah.
And you got more work done with yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So that need you had for that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So then what happens is your conscious awareness is way out there. So you'll see that stuff coming at you much quicker.
A mile away.
Not all the time, but much, much quicker,
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So look, I hope that helps. I'm just saying, look, whoever's in that situation or whoever's coming out of that situation, there's only one route in. Get your trauma sorted out. Get a good therapist do the work, do the healing work, and it doesn't have to be talking therapy. It can be a mixture of everything, right? And hey, life gets better, as you know, Ciara.
Yes, for sure. You live and you learn.
Yeah, it's a learning process. It's the university of life.
Would I change that? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Thankfully, I experienced that, and like so proud of myself for overcoming it, getting through it. Is there a little bit of shame? Yes, that I even dealt with it. Because I know, Gemma was looking at me like, what the? But like the people around you will kind of see it more clearly than you. But I had to do that myself. I had to just go in.
But even though the people around you are still holding love space for you.
Yeah.
And let you, it's a really loving act to let you sort of really experience your life, but still hold a loving space for you,
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Cool. So, yeah, thank you, Ciara. That was a really good one. So hopefully that people will, give us some feedback and subscribe to my podcast and hear more information of the how-to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks, bye. You've been listening to the Rebellious Therapist podcast. For more information, you can follow me, the Rebellious Therapist, on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You can find further information on my website, therebellioustherapist.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.